listening to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. This is episode 89, our 2019 year in review. We go over what we accomplished this year, what we'd like to accomplish next year, and some predictions that we have for the gun world in 2020. As always, thanks for listening, and we hope you enjoy episode 89 of Range Minded, the 2019 year in review. Hello and welcome to Range Minded from Independence Indoor Shooting. My name is Mark Long, and I am joined as always by
Steve Zimmerman
from an undisclosed location.
Yes.
As always.
And you may or may not hear music in the background.
I don't hear it anymore.
We were talking off the air. My daughter, I think she stopped, but she might just be in the transition of turning pages. So my daughter takes piano lessons, and she's getting pretty good, and we have an antique piano that she plays on. So
you have a baby grand, a stand-up piano, a full grand.
Oh, I wish it was a baby grand. So one of my relatives on my mom's side was a classical pianist, I guess.
Really?
And we have this old piano that came from England. Like, I guess it's been overseas a couple times, back and forth.
The piano
that was her practicing piano.
Wow, yeah. That's cool.
So it's been in my family a little while. We kind of like it.
That's great. Can you play piano at all?
I can play by ear a little bit, but nothing really worth its salt, honestly.
Well, because you're a man of many talents, so I figured you could play a little bit of piano.
Which is a kind way to say I have no talents.
Jack of all trades, master of none, maybe?
Pretty much.
Yeah. So, well, that's cool. Yeah, we had
I like music. Oh, my knees hurt.
Actually, you like good music,
Sorry,
too, from what I remember from back in the day, playing music when we were getting set up in the early days of the podcast.
Oh, man, that was forever ago, huh?
Yeah, playing some.
I like all sorts of music.
Yeah. So
I'm very eclectic. I can listen to Mozart and then all the way to like Avenged Sevenfold and everything in between.
The most surprising member of the LDS I know.
I can sing all of Gangster's Paradise but not right now.
Man, we'll have to save that for the 100th episode then. How about that?
That works for me.
Perfect. Yeah. So, but no, we're going to talk about our 2019 year in review because we are upon the end of the year. The holidays are over.
What happened to the year? Like, where did it go?
Man, I don't know. It went fast. Like, last thing I know, I was taking a class and now I'm here.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's been a wild one, and it's been full of firearms, thankfully for me, and I hope so for you too.
Well, it's never enough, but yeah, it's been good.
Yeah, I feel like you haven't gotten to shoot as much as you have this year as usually that you've wanted to.
Right.
And that happens.
Yeah, it does happen, but I still get in there once in a while. Not like you say, not as often as I want it to, but it's still all right.
Sure, and that happens to the best of us. Just one of those things, you know. Some years you do, some years you don't. You know, some years you'll buy half a dozen guns. Some years maybe you won't buy any.
Yeah, what'd you say? I didn't buy any this year then.
Well, I didn't say that, but if your wife was listening, you didn't buy a single gun at all this year.
Nothing. I don't remember. So a couple weeks ago when I was down there and I told you I picked up that safe and everything, right?
Yeah.
Was it 2 or 3 weeks ago? I got very strict rules, and maybe I even said this on the podcast. I can't remember. She said, "You're not buying another gun, are you?" I said, I just gave her this look because I don't know. Half the time, if I'm in the store, I don't know if I'm gonna buy a gun or not until there's something in it that speaks to me. Right?
There might be something that calls you. Yes.
And so she then turned it into from a question to a statement. You're not going to buy another gun, are you?
And to be fair, did you?
I didn't.
You did not.
I did.
You bought a safe,
I did not.
But you didn't buy a gun. So you are in the clear, as they say.
Well, sure. But a lot of things can happen.
That's true. And you can always make good plans for 2020.
Yeah. I'm going to make a goal that I'm going to buy. I guess we'll jump right in. My prediction for next year, I'm going to buy at least 3 handguns.
Okay. That's a pretty bold prediction, I would say.
Yeah. But hopefully my wife didn't hear that part.
See, so you know what I've noticed, quick sidebar, but you know what I've noticed about my firearm buying habits is that I actually rotate back and forth. I go, okay, I'm going to buy a handgun, and then I'm going to buy a long gun, and then I'll buy a handgun, then I buy a long gun. I go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, almost without fail.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's interesting.
The only time I broke that was at the beginning of this year. Was I bought two handguns back to back, and I've been thinking about buying another AR ever since. So it's one of those things.
Well, you can never have too many ARs.
That's true. I thought I was done at 3, and I'm not.
It's because it's America's rifle. You're not American if you don't own one.
Well, and if you think about it, we talked about it a couple episodes ago that the AR platform is the most popular rifle in the U.S. And, we've talked about, certain types of firearms being common use and that, being part of the Second Amendment. So really, when you buy or build another AR,
falls.
Yeah, and so when you build or buy another AR, you're just doing your part to contribute to make it another part of the more common use.
Mm-hmm.
Makes perfect sense, right?
And every time you buy an AR, a baby bald eagle is born.
That's a great way of putting it.
Or it gets hatched because they're not born.
They're hatched. Yes, but I love it. I think that's perfect. So we've got some we want to reflect a little bit on this year. We've got some achievements that we want to brag about a little bit, and I at least have quite a few different predictions for the coming year in firearms. So I think this will be a good episode to end the year on.
Nice.
And I don't know if you knew this. This is not going to be our first episode of 2020. This will be our last episode of 2019.
19, yeah.
Our first episode of 2020 will be episode number 90.
Wow.
Yeah, can you believe that?
Holy cow.
And if you've been here since the beginning, thanks for putting up with us for 90 episodes. That's a long time.
I don't know how many people have actually made it through 90 episodes. They're probably like, oh, these guys are awful.
And some people are like, well, you have 90 episodes?
You've been doing it that long?
Man. Yeah.
I've never heard of you.
If you've been through all 90 episodes, just email us, podcast@iishooting.com, and we'll mail you like a prize or something.
I know we've talked about it for so long, but I think we're going to we got to team up and do some giveaways. Like, we got to.
Yeah. Maybe we can make that a goal for 2020.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. I know, Nick would be, I'm sure willing to help out.
Oh, sure. Nick Hoffer, Hoftac Solutions or Hoftac Industries. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, let's talk about our year, our 2019, what we did, what we didn't do, what we wish we did, and just jump right in. So, what do you think your biggest firearm accomplishment was this year?
Well, I know I had lofty goals of taking some classes, and sure. I did get a couple classes in, but nothing near that I wanted to do.
Right.
Let's see, firearms accomplishments. Well, that's a good question. I don't even know how to answer that. I lost them all in a boating accident.
Well, that's unfortunate.
Yeah,
it happens to the best of us.
I don't know. I'm not even sure how to answer that. Maybe something will pop up in my mind, and
sure. Well,
this happened.
I can pick up a little bit. Well, I took an intermediate pistol class for the second time as a refresher, which I was actually very happy with, because the difference between at least at Independence, the beginner and the independent or the beginner and the intermediate, rather. I'm sorry, is that you start to introduce holster work, and that's really where practical concealed carry education instruction I think comes into play, because with beginner you're learning the basic manual of arms, the pistol, you're learning basic marksmanship and all that, and you're really setting the foundation for your shooting skills. And intermediate pistol really does build off of that, and taking it once last year, back in 2018. Was cool, and learning about holster work and all that, and it introduces a whole nother dynamic to shooting, especially because I think if you're used to shooting at a range and everything, holster work is a whole nother level. So being able to, having the privilege of taking that class twice, and really being able to refine your skills or refine my skills, was great and and helpful. And I will be the first one to tell you, I took that class twice, and the second time I took it, I was not the best shooter even.
You weren't? Somebody outshot you, huh?
I think so, yeah. Well, and so the interesting thing about intermediate was the first time I took it, there was only 3 of us, and I was right dead in the middle anyway. There was a guy who had been in the military and had some military firearms training, and so, I was more or less no match for that. But then there was a guy who really hadn't had enough experience and hadn't practiced enough to be able to compete. So I was kind of right in the middle. But then the intermediate class I took, earlier this year, there was like 12 or 15 people or something like that, which was great to see. But I mean, there were some people just with a lot of talent. You could tell had spent a lot of time at the range. And I was somewhere, I'd like to say I was in the upper echelon, but I definitely wasn't the most proficient shooter.
Well, that goes to show you that even between classes, if you're spending time on the range, your skills are not falling apart, right?
Right, exactly. We've talked about it being a depreciating skill, and I mean that's a real thing. If you don't go practice or whatever, it's going to take you a lot longer to kind of get back into the swing of things than somebody who goes once a week or even every other week or even once a month.
Or even dry firing, right?
Yeah.
Doing dry fire drills. That right there is probably one of the, and I know we've talked about it a bunch before, is one of the best things you can do if you can't get to the range.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So, but it was great. I enjoyed it. I learned a lot, and being able to know kind of how the class was going to go. Because I think one of the things when you take a class for the first time is that you don't know what's coming next, and so you're busy trying to keep up with what's coming next. If you take a class again, and we did a whole episode on this about taking a class for a second time, is that when you know what's coming up next, you can absorb things a little bit better. And you really do get more out of it the second time than you do the first time. So,
because you know what to expect and your nerves aren't on edge or whatever.
Yeah. And so I definitely recommend doing that twice. But then I also took the advanced pistol class, which really, I mean, man, you want to talk about Bill and Jim taking your skills to a whole nother level. That was, that was pushing it a little bit. One of the things that Bill said was that, and one of our instructors saying that, okay, so, we talked about slow and deliberate holster work when we were in the last class in the intermediate, but advanced is a little more about speed, and you're going to have your stuff together. And if you don't, then you're not going to do too well in this class. And you really do got to be buttoned up. I was surprised at the gap difference between advanced and intermediate.
And that just goes to show you how lucky we are with the instructors that we have that are able to teach those classes from beginner to, I'm not going to say super high speed, but pretty good speed, and how dynamic they can be to teach people all the way through. Because I know they've had students that started at a basic level and came back and taught them through, each level of the class, which I think is awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. And to see how they can because I think teaching the basics is definitely one thing, but being able to push people to an intermediate or an advanced level is a whole nother thing. And they do a really good job of it. And being able to, to push somebody to go almost beyond what they think they can do is very impressive.
Nice.
So I was really proud of that, being able to kind of push myself to new limits and really speed wise. And even to the point where I went actually, I think a little too fast, because in one of the drills, it was towards the end, and maybe I can attribute it to fatigue or anything like that. But, I let a round off a little too fast where it didn't even hit the target. Because you're drawing and you're ready to go, and you're not, and what Bill was talking about was in the intermediate class, he talks about taking your firearm out of the holster and that kind of that click and the bang, and the present and the bang and getting your sights on target and everything like that, and not putting your finger on the trigger until you have your sights on target and you're ready to go. But in the advanced class, you're almost, kind of contracting and streamlining everything to where you can actually have that trigger ready to go, and you're actually at the wall of that trigger right before it's about to break, before you even have your eyes on target, so you're ready to pull that trigger. And if
Right.
you've got a timer, you've got targets, you've got people watching you, you've got an instructor kind of telling you what to do. It's kind of a lot going on, and you can get a little excited, and that's exactly what happened to me. And
Yeah.
I had a good grip, I had a good draw, I had a good kind of twist out, pointed forward, and it was pointed in a safe direction, everything. But I got that round off like before I got everything on target, and it's just because I was excited and there was that pressure and the timer and everything. And so you really learn how to deal with like a stressful situation in the advanced class, at least the one that's taught at Independence, which is great because it's kind of a good reality check.
And that's exactly right. Like I liked how you said it. Is it let you know how under stress, how quickly things can go wrong. Luckily, like it wasn't in a direction that caused any harm, right?
Right. No, not at all.
When the gun went off, but it can. You think you've got everything dialed in, and then all of a sudden, nope. That was not what I anticipated. And that's what's nice about a good class once you get to the level of really sharpening that edge. I guess honing. I think of like maybe sharpening a knife. You can get a knife sharp, but once you hone it, like on a leather strop or something, that's
right.
when it's sharp. And that's what those high level classes really do, is they take your skills, which are good, and make them so much better.
Right. And going from like a competition or like the intermediate class where it's like, okay, like let's take, why don't you put, from 5 yards or so, put 2 on, 2 in the head, 2 seconds, see what you can do, how close you can get them together. And being able to draw and be able to do that in a fair amount of time, and being kind of proud of yourself, like, oh, cool, like I can do that. Like I'm impressed with myself, whatever, blah, blah, blah. And then going from that to being able to draw and do like kind of a Mozambique thing in 2 seconds and not being able to even hit one of the rounds, not even hitting a target like that, it really makes you kind of eat a little bit of humble pie,
Yep. It takes you down a couple notches and lets you know there's plenty of work to do.
Exactly. Especially when you can see other people doing it, or the person that is teaching the class shows you how it's done. Like really does kind of make you realize how much more work you have to do, like you said. So,
oh yeah.
So that was one of my big achievements. Another big achievement I had was taking a basic AR-15 class. I don't ever think that any classes are below me, but I kind of thought like, oh, I know as much as there is to know about an AR-15 from anybody. Like I know how all this stuff works. I've watched so many YouTube videos and done so much research. I've built 3 of them, like blah, 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 blah. Like, but I actually learned quite a bit in that class. And what that taught me
was that John that taught that class?
That was John and Leroy. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which was a blessing to have them both together.
Yeah. It's amazing what, like you said, a basic, and I love carving classes. I think they are a ton of fun.
Sure.
And there is a lot to, maybe not necessarily to learn, but to readapt into the carving platform. And it can be a lot of fun.
Well, and what's interesting is it's the basics are the same, or the principles are the same between handguns and carbines. You know what I mean? That's
right.
You need your grip, you need your stance, you need your all that kind of stuff. But there are some subtle differences. Whether that's maintenance or the function of the weapon or anything like that. And so you need to know what those differences are. And there were some things that I didn't even ever think about that I really, learned about. And I thought that was very beneficial to learn,
Yeah. Yeah. And if you guys haven't ever taken a carving class, please do it, because it is fun.
It is fun. And being able to shoot, long rifle or, long guns, it's a whole nother ball game than handguns for sure.
Did they, I guess with the basic class, you didn't do any kind of transition between handgun and long gun, did you? It was just all carbine work?
Yeah, it was all pretty static. It was all from, what do you call it? From just one booth, and everything. We didn't get to go out onto the range or anything like that. So,
Okay.
and you can, as time goes on, you can figure out and find classes that can do that stuff. That would be super fun.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's a little bit more of an advanced, maybe at a minimum, an intermediate type class.
sure.
But it gets pretty interesting when you start going from one platform to the other platform. It can be daunting. You talk about getting humbled, in a class. It can, if you're having struggles bouncing from one platform to another, and then you're doing it under a time stress or something like that, it can be fun.
Right. Yeah. I mean, because you have to think about, like I said, all those basics are the same, but there are some differences, and having to take your carbine and sling it over your shoulder and grab your pistol out of your holster or whatever. I mean, and adds a whole other layer of complexity. That's something you don't normally find in your average class.
No, and I mean that's usually people go to thinking on that kind of line. It's more like a military police type training, which it honestly could be a home defense scenario or whatever. It's worth learning.
Yeah, and I mean there are places that will teach civilians. We're kind of lucky in the Pacific Northwest to be able to have a lot of different places that'll do that, and it might be a couple days, and it might be expensive or whatever. But the skills that I think you learn in those are going to be invaluable. That's one of my goals. Maybe not necessarily next year because just life gets in the way, but to be able to take like a multi-day like class from like former special forces or something like that. I think I've talked about
Travis Haley or something.
Yeah, or like there's another place I've found online called Cogworks that's I think in Oregon or Washington or something like that, and it's a lot of not old, but former special forces people, in Washington State. And I'm on their website right now. They've had over 20 deployments to Iraq and Afghanistan in SOC and private sector since 9/11. I mean, just all kinds of stuff, and being able to learn from people like that, I mean, is honestly, you can't put a price on that stuff.
No, that's awesome.
So that's one of my bucket list things, is to be able to take like a weekend or like a 4 or 5 day class with one of those people and just really like, almost kind of see where your limits are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. And it seems like those are kind of cost prohibitive.
Yeah. Yeah. One of those
but
ones.
If it's something, if that's like, yeah, I was going to say, if it's a bucket list thing, just save up for it. Stop, don't buy coffee 3 times a week. Just buy it once a week and put that money aside. I mean, it can be done.
Or maybe instead of buying, 2 new guns every year or something like that, maybe put it off a year and use that money for.
Now let's not get crazy.
Let's not get over the top, but just a thought.
I know, isn't that silly? Like, then that's a gun guy first world problem right there.
Right.
Wow, man, I'm not going to go spend $1,500 on a class. Oh, look, here's a 5.7 handgun.
Yeah, right. Or I'm saving up for a P90. That's why.
Yeah, silly.
So, yeah, it happens though. I mean, everybody's got their priorities, but I think we've talked about it before. Is that training is really one of those things that you can't go wrong spending money on. So
no, it's worth its weight.
So what do you, has anything come to mind for you for achievements and stuff this year, or something you're proud of?
No, I mean, I had a chance to teach a few classes, which is good. I even jumped in on some of the concealed classes on the shooting portion, which I always enjoy. I'm still waiting to hear back from the NRA. I think I hit all my requirements to become a training counselor, and I know I badmouth the NRA nonstop. They do frustrate me, but I still want to get that counselor level to where, at some point, maybe when they get their act together, I can start training more instructors.
Right.
With their because, like them or not, their certifications do carry weight across the board.
Sure. And that's one of those things,
Yeah. It is a giant bureaucracy that wastes money, but so is the government. So,
yeah, that's
true. But other than that, I mean, yeah, I know last year when we all sat down and decided what we wanted to do for our our resolutions. Mine was to hit a bunch of classes, at least get some training in, and I did, like, say a little bit, but I'm going to say the same thing again this year, or for 20, is I am going to spend more time in the classroom, especially at the store, and get to know my firearms a little bit better. Cause I know my way around a gun, but
Sure.
we were talking earlier about honing those skills, or at least staying on top of some of it. It's important, especially where we say, I don't get a lot of time in the range like I used to. So,
Well, it's
need to.
one of those things that's not being around it as much, unfortunately,
Yeah. But in my mind, like, and I still think that it carries some validity, is like, I'm always thinking about mag changes, whether it be in my AR or in one of my handguns. Like, just, I think about the motions that I take and where my mags are positioned on my waist. Like, once in a while, I'll just be walking around and I'll do like a mag change with my imaginary gun in my hand. And people
really?
probably think I do it a lot, actually. I'll be walking around like at work or something else, like something silly like that all the time.
Yeah, just make one happen.
But I think that's a positive, other than the weird looks I get, because I'm trying to keep that memory of how things are supposed to go,
Right. Well, and I think that's probably what more people, you're doing more than what people think about on average, I would say.
Yeah. I hope so.
Well, because that's where the real practice comes, is not when you're in classes. It's after classes are over and you're at home doing this, that, and the other, or you're watching TV or whatever. I mean, that's really when I think the practice comes in. And if you're doing that kind of dry fire practice at home, or your mag change practice at home or whatever, that's gonna keep it fresh in your mind rather than depreciate.
Yeah, that's what I'm hoping. We talk about dry fire. We did a little bit the last episode, I think, or was it this one? Talked about doing some dry fire practice.
Yeah.
That it's helps. It's beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah, and for me, I think next year, one of the things that I want to do is that I really want to get a shotgun class under my belt, because now I've gotten a pistol class, several pistol classes, and I've gotten at least one carbine class. But one of the things I have not gotten is a shotgun class. And my buddy Daniel, who I've talked about, here and there, he loves shooting now. We've gotten him all excited on it. And
Nice.
he wants to be a shotgun guy. I mean, that's one of the beautiful things about firearms, is that it can attract all kinds of different people, and you can be attracted to different parts of it. I'm more of a handgun kind of self-defense tactical guy. He's more of a hunting kind of shotgun kind of guy, and that's his bag or whatever. And I'm totally down with that. But he goes, well, show me how to shoot a shotgun. I'm like, well, here's the manual of arms. I can kind of show you the basics or whatever, but past that, I don't really know what to tell you. So it was like, wow, I don't know anything about shotguns.
And I've never taken a shotgun class either. And I've heard some great things about some of those classes in that platform that are just fantastic. If you don't mind getting beat up a little bit, especially if you're running a pump gun,
oh sure,
that you're going to feel more of the recoil. I think it would be a lot of fun.
Oh, I would say so too.
And I think on my mind kind of works more to the tactical side of things, because I don't really hunt. It's not my bag. So
right, but the basics are the same.
I look more on the defensive
the basics
side.
of handling a firearm are the same.
Yeah. Yeah, so I'm with you. And if you find a class, or if we got one coming up, then I'm taking it with you.
Yeah, man. I think maybe we should make that a goal of 2020, is to find one and take one together, because we've taken a knife class together with Mr. Adam Boyce, and that was a great time.
Heck yeah. Any time with Adam's a great time.
That's true. So
we need to get him back on the show.
Yeah, we need to get him on a third time, because he's in contention with one of our most regular guests. So,
yeah, one day, maybe this will be one of our goals for next year, is to do almost like a round table or a big platform
Oh, that'd be
of
super
where we
cool.
got like several guests at one time.
Yeah. I feel bad too
Just
because
hang out.
Adam invited me to a class a couple weeks ago, and I had some prior engagements, so unfortunately I couldn't go. But he was like, "Yeah, no big deal, man." But he's like, "Yeah, if you and your fiance want to come out and shoot or take the class or whatever, that'd be great." And I'm like, "Oh man, I wish I could, but we got too many things going on." So
Yeah. Yeah, and I think he's a fantastic instructor too. Like we've kind of been tagging along with him since he really was getting the ball rolling with his martial blade concepts
yeah,
teaching, and he's really taken that and run. So
yeah, because he's gone
I think
over
it's
all over the
awesome.
country, and he's going to be going all over the world pretty soon.
Yeah, he's a good friend to have. I think
Oh, for sure, for
he's
sure.
very capable.
So, but yeah, so let's move on to predictions for next year because I think, politically speaking, next year is going to be an interesting year. I think there's a lot of trends in the
Yes,
firearm
yes,
world
it
that are
will.
going on that are going to continue. Do you have any predictions that are going on right now?
So we see in the past, last couple months, stuff that's been going on in Virginia,
Yeah,
um,
that's been a big old thing.
and it seems like it keeps getting the heat turned up.
Yeah, like day by
Uh,
day.
and hopefully by the time this airs, because we record this a couple days before
Right.
this actually goes down, hopefully nothing has happened to the point of violence.
I
But
don't think so. I normally cooler heads prevail in these kind of situations, but
but
most of the time.
I think that's going to heat up really really hot next year with the whole politics of nationally. I mean, it's an election year. Things are
Yep.
going to get crazy towards the end of the year. So I think guns are going to be brought right back to the forefront.
Sure.
Um, I I I think it's going to be a difficult time for gun owners next year. Um, I think it's going to get more expensive.
Sure.
The CDC recently, the CDC said they were going to do a report on firearms fatalities as an epidemic. So
Really?
that could really be influenced next year if that report gets released.
Well, but they're going to
So I
find
think
they're going to find what they're going to find, I guess. Is one way of
they're
putting
going to find exactly what they want to produce is what's going to happen. And so, like I say, I think 2020 is going to be really difficult with all that stuff that's going to be, because what they're wanting to do is create a public health crisis, right? That's the point. And so, like I say, I think with the election year, with the impeachment stuff that's been going on the last few weeks,
Uh-huh.
I think it's going to be difficult to be a gun owner, which brings us to the point of it's more important than ever to stand up for our rights and to be a steward, like we always talk about, a steward of the Second Amendment, so we can be a positive face for gun ownership.
Oh, for sure. But I think something else that's kind of interesting is that I think one of my predictions is that 3D printing is going to become more of a thing. And so it may be more difficult, but it also might become more easy in other ways. Because 3D printing is
Yeah.
being such a thing nowadays. I mean, I've seen online people are printing magazines, people are printing lowers, people are 3D printing frames. I mean,
Well, and you can 3D print in metal, so like have pulverized metal powder that
right.
heats up and prints metal. So I think you're right, and that's the other thing. I know we've talked. It's probably been a long time ago where we talked about that guns are never going to go away in the United States. Never.
Right.
But the stigma of owning one, certain types of guns, whether they be common use or not, it's just going to be a big mess.
Yeah. Well, and
but
go ahead.
But I think there'll be some positive lights too at the end of the tunnel. I mean, I don't want to sound like it's all doom and gloom. There's some other bills that are getting brought up, to make NFA items less restrictive, that kind of thing too, which won't have any traction unless the election at the end of the year turns positive for conservatives or Republicans or gun owners or whatever you want to say.
Yeah, because that's one interesting thing I think is
that'll make a huge impact.
Because I think guns are becoming less of a partisan issue. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong about that, but I think it's more gun owners versus non-gun owners, or that's becoming what the big divide is, as of late. Because it feels like, it doesn't matter what political party you are. There's just,
Well,
pro-gun versus anti-gun.
Yeah. And as long as it can be kept in the conversation of a constitutional thing and not as it's my responsibility in the mind of the Constitution, so people can understand that rights are being attacked, right?
Right.
And we've talked about that. Well, at least I've ranted about that on to no end, probably to your frustration. But I think it's going to be a difficult year, rights, but it might end up being a positive year by the end of the year for gun ownership.
Yeah, we'll kind of see. I think we're going to have our ups and downs.
If I can be it. Yeah. And I'm sure that it's inevitable that there'll probably be some kind of mass event to really spur the conversation. But we can go in our own conspiracy theories about why those happened later. But
yeah, unfortunately, I think that might be a thing. But I guess we'll kind of just wait and see what happens.
Yeah.
So.
But on the brighter side.
Yeah, no. But on the brighter side, I think there's going to be more openness to the firearms world because of the Glock 44. Believe it or not,
I think you're probably right.
I was thinking about this because, okay, so obviously Glock 44 came out a couple weeks ago. 22 caliber Glock pistol, first one ever. Everybody's like, "Oh, what the hell is that? What are they going to do with that?" And then like everybody else is like, "Well, I kind of want that to train." And
well, I can't believe how much crap Glock took from releasing a 22 caliber handgun.
And it's the first one ever in 30 years, 25, 30 years as an existence as a firearms company.
Well, think about how many conversion kits there are out there for the Glock.
Right.
So why wouldn't they capitalize on that market? And I understand, well, it's the same thing. They just keep making the same thing over and over again. Yeah, but if it's a proven platform, why radically change it? Because it's those same guys that complain, well, Ford changes their motor after this year and it sucks. Well, you want change or you don't want change? What is it?
Right. Pick your decision. And the thing is, like, honestly, a 22 Glock is gonna get, I think, more people into the gun world because it's an easier barrier, or it's a smaller barrier to entry to get to.
And I like when we had Levi on, I will have one. I will have one.
Right. Well, and that's the thing, is it makes it easier to train. I mean, and it's cheaper to train. So you can, the same manual of arms on your Glock 44 is going to be the same on your 17, on your 19, on your 26, on your 19X, whatever you want to, put on it. It's going to be cheaper and easier to train with that. And it's going to make you a better shooter no matter what.
Yeah. I'm totally down with it. I was, when they first announced it, I was kind of like, but the more I looked at it, I watched a little promo video, and the more I thought about it, it makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, but what the thing is so I think why people like get like apprehensive about it after they first release it, because there's so much hype about it initially, where it's like, because you probably saw the hype and the ads and stuff. All they took were like, the biggest thing Glock has ever released ever is coming out this day or whatever. And then it's like, it comes out and it's like, oh, we're releasing a 22 pistol. It's like, okay, literally everybody has a 22 pistol, like in one of those. So like, you don't really need to make that hype happen. And so I think that's what maybe turns Glock, or it turns off, some people to Glock or whatever. But I think it's going to be a great thing.
They all do it though. Every company does the same thing. It's all part of their marketing scheme. So I don't know why people get so upset about it.
I think because Glock is like the gold standard for firearms. And I mean, I think most people, and this is the Walther guy saying that, but most people gravitate towards a Glock.
Say that again.
And yep. No, most people gravitate towards a Glock because because of its ease of use and its universality and parts and customization and all that kind of stuff. I think that's what most of it is.
I don't, and this is the Glock guy talking. I don't know if I would say that there's a gold standard.
Sure.
But I would definitely say they're probably closer to the, and this will probably get people fired up.
Oh, here we go.
They're probably closer to the workhorse side of it because they're simple. They run. They're user friendly because they're so simple.
Right.
And so maybe more of a benchmark than the gold standard, I guess, is another way to put it.
Okay. I'd say that's a good way to put it.
But there's a lot of good guns out there, and I'm not just a Glock snob. I have other firearms, but
really, do you? I don't believe
I just like the way the Glock feels in my hand and how it shoots. It just functions better for me.
Well, and honestly, my time in the gun world, that's what I've noticed is either you're a Glock guy or you're not. And it all comes down to personal preference. It's not a one thing better than the other or whatever. I have no problems with Glock. Like, there have been several times where I've like, you know what, I need a Glock 19 just to have a Glock 19, but it's like, it's just going to sit it's going to sit in the safe.
It's the most purchased handgun in America. So.
Exactly.
Well, and that'll probably get people riled up too. But I'm pretty sure, well, I'll put it this way. The Glock 17 is the most purchased handgun in the world, duty wise. It is the most uniform duty carry gun or duty weapon in the world.
Right. Yeah. And it works, and there's nothing wrong with that. You know what I mean?
There is nothing wrong with it. That's right. So,
but it doesn't fit my hand that well. And as a lefty, I think, and I will say that if I had gotten into guns a couple years later and there was an ambidextrous slide release and ambidextrous mag release, then it might've been a different story, but Walther got to me first.
And I think Walther makes a good gun. They've been around a long time.
Sure.
I just I have a hard time with how it feels in my hand. Yeah. Doesn't mean it's a crappy gun.
It's all personal preference.
That's right.
So, but what I will say is that if I were to get a Glock, I would also probably do a Polymer 80 handgun just because I can.
Yeah.
And I think
you might as well while you can.
And that's one of my other predictions to get back on that train is that I think that there's going to be some sort of nationwide ban on Polymer 80 handguns. I don't know why. I feel like I saw some news story about somebody talking about, Polymer 80 handguns and being able to make a quote unquote ghost gun and all this kind of stuff. I just feel
not just the polymer, but any kind of 80% lower. I think
yeah, you're right. There's a news story about it.
I think that's probably a pretty strong prediction. That there will be some kind of, I don't know if they'll be completely gone, but there'll be some kind of a restriction on them.
Yeah, or somebody's going to try to ban them, and then it'll go to the Supreme Court, and they'll say, no, you can't ban that because you can construct firearms in your own home, for your own use, and that's a legal, application of the Second Amendment. So we'll see.
Yeah.
So that's one of my big things. I think is the Polymer 80 thing is going to come up because it's operated in this realm for a long time and nobody said anything about it. It's been there for a while and nothing's been said. I think something's going to be said sooner or later. Well,
all it's going to take, I kind of lean toward there being some kind of an event, right?
Sure.
A shooting event. And if actually that did happen at the Florida Naval Base. I think that was a self-built gun.
Was it really?
That guy used. I think so.
And what was interesting about that? It didn't get a lot of national news.
Yeah, and I think it had to do with the makeup of the shooter, actually.
Oh, really?
I'd have to do some research on that again. I haven't looked at that for quite a while. But I think there was something that wasn't quite right. It didn't just match their standard talking points.
The narrative.
Bless their hearts.
Interesting. Well, that's good to know.
I think, and this is an easy one to say, I think there obviously going to be a bunch of new guns coming out. There always is in
Oh, for
January,
sure.
right, during SHOT Show. But I think we're going to see maybe some really cool stuff. Maybe some new carbines. I mean, there's only so much they can do with a weapon system like an AR or a handgun, right? But
Sure.
I think there's going to be some pretty cool new either accessories or add-ons to really make guns pop. I mean, not necessarily the function of how they work, but just how they look.
Well, because the
I think
big
we're
thing
gonna
has
see something
been
cool.
concealed carry guns for the last, year or so, year and a half maybe?
Yeah.
So what do you think is going to be the next big thing in 2020? You think that's going to be the same thing or?
Yeah, I think Glock, because they're 22 caliber handgun, I think we'll see kind of a splurge of new 22 handguns coming out just to stay in competition.
Sure.
I think you're going to probably see some new interesting caliber ARs. You know, you can only do so much, right? I mean, it's just a platform.
Now, do you think you're going to see a lot more 22 ARs?
There's a few out there. I don't know about that.
Because there's only really, I think CMMG makes a 22 caliber conversion kit with the bolt and that kind of stuff, whatever. But do you think we're going to see more AR people coming out with that?
I don't know. I think you might see some stuff how they maybe charging systems or something like that. I don't know if you're going to see a lot of 22 rifles coming out that are different.
Sure.
You'll probably see some new crazy chassis type rifles that are going to be kind of cool coming out, but
okay.
I don't know. I think it's hard to say with the gun community. Like some of the stuff really surprised me that they come out with, and some of it just is stupid.
So do you think there's anything stupid that's going to come out that you're just going to shake your head at?
Oh, there always is. Like, I know. Actually, well, this already came out, which isn't stupid, and it is a 22 handgun. Ruger came out with their integrally suppressed Mark IV.
Oh yeah.
Did you see that a couple weeks ago?
I did, yeah, which is pretty cool.
So that is cool, but I'm sure there's going to be some other companies that come out with something that's, I don't know, just a poorly designed handgun, or I don't know,
some sort of knockoffs and competitor
yeah. Or you'll see the same stuff all over again. Like the 1022 patent expired in 2019, so there's a whole bunch of 1022 clones. So I mean that could easily happen. Maybe we'll get some cool stuff from Europe this year, but that is pretty unlikely.
Well, they did just release the SB5. HK did, so I think that's promising.
I wish it was the K though.
And I really, really wish they would re-release and remanufacture the P7. That would just be off the chain. I'd be cool with that.
And maybe it will.
I don't think so.
There's just so many things hurdles you gotta get over coming out of Europe.
Yeah, the import laws and all that kind of jazz or whatever.
ITAR and all that crap that we got to deal with.
But man, that P7 would be so cool, especially because we're in the holiday season. Well, after the holiday season now, and Die Hard has the HK P7. I mean, how slick of a gun is that? I don't think anybody would be upset having that in their collection.
No, and it might happen. You never know.
Yeah. So, I think that's, well, let me see. Let me double check them. I think that's most of the predictions I have. Obviously we talked about, well, we didn't talk about it much, but I think there's going to be a lot of panic buying next year, which is,
well, it's an election year.
Yeah.
In my experience as an election year, I don't want to try and create a run or make it sound like I'm trying to sell stuff, but, it might not be a bad idea to have an extra lower or two in the safe.
Sure. And to buy your ammo now.
Yeah, get stuff sooner than later. The closer we get to November, the worse it's going to be.
Yeah, I think this summer is going to be a hot old mess.
Yeah, it's super frustrating that it has to be that way, and it really shouldn't be that way.
Well, and I would say that it doesn't matter. Party lines don't matter. It's every year this happens, you know?
Yeah, it's just the way it is because people are, the gun community is always worried that their rights are going to get chipped away because that's
you
just
don't
what we're
know.
used to.
And you just don't know.
Yeah, I mean, if Michael Bloomberg makes it as the nominee, then there'll be a huge amount of buying going on.
Right. Yeah, that's kind of a come out of nowhere thing, where it's like,
Yeah, I really don't think he'll make it. I think he's just wasting his money.
sure.
I think it will end up being Joe Biden unless health reasons or something come in the way. But I'm pretty sure it'll be Biden, and I might be wrong. I don't know. Everybody thought Kamala Harris was going to make it, but she's done. So
Yeah, it could be Bernie Sanders too.
and no, that's not going to happen.
You don't think so?
No, he's far too. Even some of the Democrats are like they don't support him, so that's not going to happen.
Well, you never know.
If anything, it'll be Hillary. It will be the October surprise.
I would be floored if that happened.
Yeah, I would not be surprised because
So,
she's in the middle of rebranding herself again. So,
well, she's lost the primary once or twice, and lost the general twice now, once or twice.
yeah.
So
Hopefully she's done.
I don't know.
But I know for me, like what I want to do next year, and I guess this really isn't a New Year's expectation or whatever, but as I am going to take more classes at the store, like it's just got to be that way. I got to make time.
Sure.
So,
and that's one of the things about any classes. You have to make the time to happen. And one of the best ways to do that is just to look 3-4 months ahead, sign up for a class, pay for it, and then it's just on your calendar. And then you don't have any other conflicts that come up with it.
That's right. Because you've already resolved those conflicts.
Exactly. So, well, what kind of classes do you want to take?
Well, I'm actually going to start right at the beginning again.
Really?
I'm just going to do the whole journey. I want to take the whole journey.
Start at the basic and work your way up.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
And I know that some of that's going to be super simplistic for me, but I really just want to do the whole experience. Like, just start from the beginning.
So what is your rationale behind that?
I don't know. It's always nice to have a refresher. Like you were saying, you took that one class twice. It's just nice to make sure that everything's in check for me.
Yeah. Just to kind of start fresh and make sure you don't have any bad habits. And
maybe I'll drag some of my kids along with us.
There you go. That's a good idea.
Because I know it's easier for anytime I teach my family, it's a lecture apparently. But anytime somebody else teaches the same information, it's a class. So
sure. Well, we've talked about that before, and I mean that's kind of I think that's just where the source of the information is coming from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, well, do you have any other predictions or anything you think is going to happen in 2020? I mean, I think the panic buying is going to be a thing, and there's going to be some court cases probably that come up, but then again, nobody can predict really what's going to happen.
Yeah, I'm hoping, like I said, there are some new bills produced that maybe they'll get some traction. I think actually here's something I think is a high possibility. I think we're going to see a lot of Supreme Court gun cases. I think
so?
I think we'll see one or two come through this year. Some pretty major ones that will influence a lot, that may even have to interfere with some of the state's laws. So I think that's why I'm saying there might be some really good things that come out of this year. As far as being a gun owner, I think we might see one or two Supreme Court cases happen.
Well,
that will end up in our favor.
We will find out, won't we?
Yeah. There's stuff brewing. As long as we stay vigilant, we're good.
Yeah. So, well, and I think that we can end on that where, support your local gun groups and your national gun groups, GOA and FPC and all those kind of things, because they're fighting for our rights every day. And, if you have any predictions about what's going to happen, let us know. Podcast at iishooting.com or, shoot us a message on Facebook or Instagram at Range Minded Podcast. We'd love to hear from you.
And for the first month of January, I'm going to challenge all of our listeners to take one person to the range.
There you go.
Just in January, take one person.
Love it. I think that'd be a great thing. I mean, that's the best way. We've talked about it ad nauseum, that's the best way to change somebody's mind, is to take them to the range and take them shooting if they've never been.
Absolutely.
So, well, thank you for listening. We'll end on that, and you have a great new year, and we'll talk to you in 2020.
Yeah, don't stay up too late.
Yeah, seriously. All right, be safe.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Range Minded. Find us online at Range Minded Podcast on Facebook, or send us an email at podcast@iishooting.com. We're always happy to get feedback, episode suggestions, whatever you want to send us, really. And be sure to subscribe to us on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, and pretty much wherever else you get your podcasts from. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.